What's up, everybody? This is Bobby, aka Lumberjack Smack, and today we are going to be taking a quick look at the Division 2 open beta that came out this past weekend. I wanted to take some time to go through and highlight some of the things that I really enjoyed about the beta, noticeably some of the things that were different from the Division 1, and then talk through some of the elements that I hope to see continue throughout the release of the game. The Division 2 is going to be coming out on March 15th, so we are right around the corner from that. If you pre-order the Ultimate Edition or the Gold Edition, you do get early access to that game. It comes out on March 11th. But they've done a pretty awesome job so far of delivering on their promise of exploring the world further and taking some of those characteristics that we really loved from the Division 1 over into the sequel here. So as you can see, they still got that really great cover-based system. They have an amazing use of style and feel in these games. Like, one thing that I remember from the Division originally was just being so taken aback by how the world felt being a part of it, and what they did with some of the combat play and the mechanics of the guns. So in the beta, you start off at level 0 and you go all the way up to level 8 in the open world beta, or I'm sorry, the open beta that they have. Unlike the first closed beta, they only let you go to 7. But for the most part, this beta was almost exactly the same thing that you got from the closed beta that came out a few weeks ago. This is going to be 2 or 3 story missions and about 5 side quests, and some notable places of interest to check out while you're here this time around. One thing I did notice was they designed the world of Washington to be a lot more exploratory, and the benefits of doing so really pay off. There's a lot more at stake now as far as resources that you manage, and we'll get into that here in a little bit. But finding nooks and crannies to go through here in Washington, if you see a ladder or if you see a back alleyway and going down it, usually rewards you with something great that will benefit the areas that you're trying to support as you build up your communities here in Washington. So this particular area that we're at right now on the quick look, we're getting ready to go into the White House. This is the opening of the beta. I don't know if this is the actual opening of the game or not, but we're out on the lawn of the White House here, and I found a vantage point and just really enjoying that cover-based shooting that you have. There's some elements that you can still interact with and blow up, but enemies were dropping some pretty decent loot during the time of the beta. These early hours into it, not so much, but I did get some rare stuff near the end of it. And I tend to play a bit more on the technical side. Like, I like to use my skills, and I appreciate like an LMG. But as you can notice, the White House is the now base of operations, which is really cool. And in the previous game, you had one location at the post office in New York City, but being in the White House is a little surreal, and the establishments that they have with it. So what you can see here is they've introduced a new quartermaster that's going to handle all of your skills, your perks, and your upgrades. And I thought this was a really welcome change compared to the old division. It gave me a bit more one-stop shop for what I wanted to do and what I wanted to upgrade. It made more sense. Like, I didn't have to go and get technical points. I didn't have to go and get like medical supplies. I literally was going out, playing the missions that I wanted to play, earning the points that I needed, and then coming back to the quartermaster to upgrade those points. I didn't have to dump them into certain areas of the post office. I didn't have to do certain types of missions. Everything was benefiting the end game grind, which I really did like. So some of the old familiar things that we had there was the turret, which was one of my favorite skills from the previous Division game. In this particular beta, they offered the chem launcher, which is a really fun weapon that you can use to shoot out a cloud burst that you can then ignite and set everybody on fire, or use it as like a foam to lock in. On the perks menu, I was a little taken aback the first time I played through the closed beta. I didn't quite understand that I had to unlock all the build outs for your weapons. So if you wanted to get scopes, if you wanted to get grips, if you wanted to extend your magazines, those used to be things that you could pick up or buy. These are now achieved by unlocking them through perk and skill points. So on the main menu there, you have your skills. To the right, you have perks. You also have your staff roster, which you'll be able to go into and recruit people to come back to the White House to help you expand what you can do at your base of operations. And then from that point, you can load out and go right into the first mission, which they're asking you to go and find the theater, which is going to be a new landmark for the base of operations, which is exciting. So as I was mentioning earlier about exploring, they've got these little areas now outside of like garages that you would have in the Division 1. They're more of these hubs or communities or micro communities where you can find certain resources. So I've got antibiotics. I think I was going to be able to get some more food, which All these elements go into strongholds that you would take over or community centers that you would go into. I didn't quite feel it was as survival based as something as like State of Decay or even the ill-informed Fallout 76, but there was some element of having to have those resources plentiful for your people. That way they would not be overran again by the hyenas and the other factions that you play against. So in this particular beta, you are fighting against the hyenas, which is one of the factions in the new game. They are pretty straightforward. Like they're using more or less just like ragtag weaponry. They're kind of a street gang. I did not feel that they had like the presence of a military, but more of like a militia. They were pretty easy. There were some smart AI elements with them. They do a lot of communicating to one another out loud about where your position is, so you can make some movements to get in that best drop area to take them on. They are using some sort of drug. I don't know if it's a different version of the drug from the Black Friday event in Division 1, but it gives them almost this bonus rage that'll cause them to come running at you and gives them a little bit of a shield buff. One thing you'll notice on my character right here, those white dots above my health bar, which is the orange bar, that is your armor. And so unlike the first division, you now have an armor kit that you can pick up. And to heal yourself, you'll hold down and do an armor kit regeneration rather than taking like a med kit. So it does add a different appeal to like managing your resources, because now some of the skill trees and the skills that you have are going to go into be repairing shields rather than like giving you a health or a revive. So here we are at the theater. It is pretty cool. Like it's a micro base of operations, so you can't do any of your skill tree upgrades. You don't have your quartermaster here, but you can go in and figure out some of the things that are happening in the city. You can get missions here. So this Anaya here, she's going to be becoming the person that will be doing crafting back at the base of operations. And you'll unlock more at these different locations. I don't know if there'll be multiple places like this in the end game, but for the beta, this was an area that I frequented more than the White House. If I needed to break down materials, if I needed to buy anything or sell anything, I could do that here as well. This is where I was collecting all of my missions that led me into some of the side quests and then the discovery of the area. It's also a good chance to interact with some of the NPCs and learn a little bit more about what's been happening in Washington during the events of the Division. They've got some quick access areas that you can hop into to explore with your friends, or you can line up and go out by yourself. This is now going into that first mission that they give you to finish finalizing things at the theater district. This was a really fun mission. Lots of little areas to get pinned down and add some heat to. I was running this solo. I also played it with some friends at a different time, and that was a lot of fun. But they've got some really great choke points here. It did not feel very different, to me at least, compared to some of the missions from the original Division. So like more the same, which isn't a bad thing necessarily. But if you were expecting a different formula from what you came to know in the Division 1, it is not here. This is absolutely the Division that you know and love, or at least maybe that you know and hate. Smart AI. The AI is vastly improved. They're going to be moving about the space. They will corner you. I remember in the Division 1, I would go into an area and set up and pretty much just lay waste to people from one spot, moving here and there just a little bit, maybe to dodge a grenade or to grab a resource. But as you can see in my playthrough here, I had to move quite a bit. The AI was really forcing me to explore the area, and I did appreciate that. I think the AI, for me at least, outside of some of the skills, has been one of the most noticeable improvements in the game. Graphically, it looks wonderful. The mechanics of movement I found to be a bit more accurate and precise as well. Taking cover, leaving cover was great. Being able to go in and work through hitboxes, I thought they were a lot more accurate. So this particular guy here was popping up and down behind those leaves. He was a little tricky to get to, and I ended up missing him a few times. But once you lock in on the hitbox, it was really accurate and very rewarding. I do think that there's enough here to bring on new players. Like if you escaped the zeitgeist of the Division when it came out a few years ago, and you've been on the fence about going into it, I think there's enough here that there's some good quality of life improvements from the previous one, but also some new additions as far as like the daily mission structure, the base building elements, the team play, and the ability to do this game on your own, I think is really important. these looter shooter games that have just been taking us by storm this generation, I think do turn people away because they rely so heavily on team play. And I cannot stress enough, like, these games are so much better when you have people to enjoy them with. I think about a game like Apex Legends that had some quality of life improvements for those solo players that allowed you to go in and use the ping system without communicating to people. If you are okay with talking with people, you can do a lot of party chat in here and enjoy playing with random people. But if you have the opportunity to play this with people or friends, I do recommend that, as it adds a whole different layer and dynamic to the game. But with all that being said, you can play it solo and get a good enjoyment. There's enough here to allow you to get through some of these tougher spots. Now you get to the end game builds, you are going to want to have some people with you. It's just damn near impossible to do anything on this game without those resources. So wrapping it up here, I was all in on The Division when it first came out. I bounced away from it pretty quickly because I didn't think that the original release of The Division had a lot of in-game content. But they did a great job of coming back and supporting that game and adding in and listening to feedback. And playing both of the betas for The Division 2, I can honestly say that they carried over a lot of what worked well near the end of life for the original Division. And they've added in some really cool mechanics that I think will bring in some new players. This is The Division. There's no denying it. It's not different enough to say, hey, man, if you hated The Division, you might like the Division 2. But it is something that I feel is worth revisiting, even if you didn't like The Division when it came out and you never went back to see some of those things they improved. The beta was a really good taste of what's to come. I think that the improvements to the gunplay, the mechanics, the movements are all really warranted. Some of the recent changes they made with your skills are really cool. I love the quartermaster stuff that they've brought in. I like that you can now just play the game how you want to and then go back and use your perks in a way that makes a little bit more sense, especially if you've played games like Destiny, where you can just have all your skills going into an area and you build out your subclasses and then you go back to the tower and get your stuff. That makes a lot of sense to me, like that loop and that play style. The loop here for this game is pretty rewarding. The mission structure is challenging, and there is a skill tree I think that you can really explore to find new ways to play. The end-game content really unlocks when you hit level 30. Again, you get to level 8 in the beta, so you don't get a full taste of what that could be, but they've released some really interesting footage and trailers to kind of tease what's to come. So if you're on the fence, my closing thoughts are, I think this is going to be a really big game for 2019. I think Ubisoft has listened to what worked at the end of the vision, and if it's anything like traditional Ubisoft games, the first one always feels a little off, and they always just dunk so hard on the second one. And that seems to be the case here with The Division 2 as well. So the game comes out on March 15th. It is available on all platforms. I think that the gold version is the minimum requirement to get it early. The ultimate comes with all kinds of crazy stuff, but the gold version is going to get you the season pass for the year and some in-game content right out of the gates. March 11th is the unlock date for the early play. Otherwise, you can get this on the 15th of March. My name is Bobby. I go by Lumberjack Smack online. If you have any thoughts on The Division or the beta that you played, or if you are excited for this or not excited, leave me a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are. I'd love to hear what you're looking forward to or what you're enjoying in the beta. Thank you so much for listening. It's been a pleasure. I will talk to all of you soon.